are is that we have understood Hibernate for a while. We understand now that for us to use Hibernate in our Java application, what we need to do is to apply OAD, come up with our POJO classes, following with all best practices, identify the relationships, correspondingly understand what data model we want, and then we can go about using the mappings. After all, Hibernate is a broker in between our Java application and database. Hibernate uses JDBC and SQL, which are generated. For us to communicate with Hibernate, we need to configure Hibernate. How do we do that? Is by annotations, where we specify for each relationship we have, how should Hibernate reflect that in the database. So we understand there are only fixed type of relationships that OAD supports, and that means for all of those fixed type of relationships, we need to understand the mappings. So the simplest mappings is a correct correspondence 1:1 mapping with the database, which is nothing but entity to simple value types. So entity to simple value types 1:1 unidirectional relationship is the one which directly maps to table and columns. Then we understand that we might have 1:n simple value type with an entity. Then we understand that the database table design, quickly to recap, tell me, if you have entity to simple value type 1:n, what will be the data model? What should be the data model? Tell me the design. Come on, guys. Employee has whatever, names or emails. One employee has many emails, right? One employee has many emails means entity to simple value type 1:n. What should be the data model that should be reflected? Data model, the database design. Employee has emails. Database, man, data, okay. Yes, thank you. So employee has a name, has an ID, right? All 1:1, 1:1, simple value type, unidirectional. Now what will this translate to? From a data model point of view, you need to know the model first, then you go about providing the mapping, isn't it? What should be the data model for this? How many tables? One table, and all of this will become columns, correct? So now if employee has whatever emails, right? And what is emails? One employee can have many emails. What is an email? Is a string. That means it is still simple value type. As from Java point of view, you are right. What will be the data type of the instance variable? Yes, so these two will be string and this will be a collection of strings, correct? Now tell me, for this, what do we want as the database model design? Employee table and then employee underscore emails table with a primary key foreign key link, isn't it? Secondary table, isn't it? To get that, now what should be the mapping, isn't it? For employee to entity to 1:1 simple value type, we don't need to do any explicit mapping. All we said we need to do is map your class at entity, have additional some SL number to keep a track of the primary key, mark this at ID and at generated value, and we are taken care of. We get a table, primary key generation, and all the columns generated for 1:1 simple value type as well. If we have 1:n, then tell me what is the annotation? Very good. At element collection. I'm just quickly recapping the mappings in the next 10 minutes. So tell me, at element collection. Now what happens if employee has an address, and address, let's say, is made up of street, city, blah blah. So that means what will be the data type of address is also another class. But then we understand this is what relationship? 1:1 again. One employee has one address. What is it? Very good. Complex value type, because this is a class that we create separately, and this class will have probably 4 instance variables, and those 4 instance variables should become 4 columns. Again, what should be the data model? Remember this. For the O model relationship, what is the data model we need to know first. Then comes the mapping. So what should be the data model? Same table, all address object instance variables, address instance variables should become columns in the same employee table. Very good. So how do we do that? In address class, we mark it at, perfect, at embeddable, and above this at embedded, perfect. So this is how we map for 1:1 complex value type. Same way we observed if you have 1:n complex value type, like for example, we have phone numbers, and imagine one phone number is given to you by your ISD code, your actual number and type to indicate mobile or whatever. That means what we need to code? A separate phone class or phone number class or whatever it is, correct? So the phone class or phone number class is also not an entity. It cannot exist on its own. So which means where we want to store this information again is with respect to employee itself, isn't it? So what is the relationship? 1:n complex value type. Because it is 1:n, what should be the data type? It should be a collection typed to phone numbers. Correct? No? Now what is phone number? Separate class, which means again we will map it at embeddable. Why? Because this is not an entity. It is a value type after all. Above this, what will we map? At not embedded. This is a list element collection. So remember, whether you have a simple value type 1:n or complex value type 1:n, the annotation we use is exactly same. Are you with me? So for complex value type, it is with 1:1, it is embedded, but you don't need to say that when you have 1:n. Everybody clear? So, sorry, man. Phone number class won't be there, no? Directly we can give it in. Phone number class should be there, no, man, because phone number has your number, phone number has your type, phone number has your ISD code or whatever, right? For address class, for pet names in lab we did just element collection and yeah, that was because, why did you do like that? In the lab was we assumed that one phone number is one string. It was 1:1 pet names. 1:n pet names or whatever, but the value was one string. So it was list type to string, correct? Here we are saying, the requirement is saying that phone number is made up of 3 values, which means you need to create a separate class, obviously a complex value type at embedded at element collection. Are you with me, guys? Very good. So this is all entity to value type relationships and corresponding mappings, right? Then maybe we have employee has an account, we observed. Employee has an account. Now tell me, one employee, obvious question to ask is, how many accounts, right? So let's say one account, and obviously what is an account? Well, account is a separate entity. It has its own number, it has its own owner, date of creation, blah blah blah, which means what will be created is a separate account class. But what is the question you should be asking? Yeah, it is a separate class, it has a number, it has a owner, blah blah, but what else we should ask? Can it exist on its own? If yes, and it is yes, then we treat this also as entity. Very good. So that means we will have to mark this also as at entity, isn't it? So what are we looking at then? And this will also have your SL number at ID and at generated value, right? Now tell me, what are we looking at? Dash to dash, dash to dash, entity to entity, 1:1, correct? So 1:1, and obviously what we need to ask when you have entity to entity is directionality, correct? It could be uni, it could be bi. So let's imagine only employee knows about the account, that means it will become unidirectional. Everybody with me? Now first tell me, what should be the database design? Account, should it have a separate table or not? Yes. If it is an entity, it has to have a separate table. And then tell me now, obviously employee table is different. Now tell me, how do you say one employee has which account? So obviously where should the information be stored? Account information should be stored in employee table, employee information should be stored in account table, or both of these linking should be stored in ternary table. No, look at this. One employee has how many accounts? One account. Where should you store the information? In employee only. If employee has something, that information should be stored in employee table only. Correct now? So what should be stored? Which account? No. How do you say which account? Account SL number. Correct? So all that needs to be stored is account SL as a foreign key in employee table to account. That's what we want. Remember, understand the POJO classes, understand the relationships by identifying value type, complex value type entity, identify the directionality and cardinality or multiplicity, then come up with what should be the data model, then identify mapping. This should be the manner in which you identify. So tell me now, what should be the annotation? What should be the mapping? There is only at 1:1. That's all. At 1:1, isn't it? Optionally, what we could turn on? Cascade. And why will we turn on cascade? Is to indicate that if we save an employee, automatically the related account also should be saved. We don't need to ask Hibernate to save account separately and employee entity separately, right? So that is the cascade that we can turn on. Everybody clear? Now, if account also has a owner, account also has an owner and owner is nothing but the employee, then it suddenly becomes dash directionality, bidirectionality, correct? So if it is bidirectionality, what will we have? Bidirectional, not many to many, yeah. Bidirectionality means in account there is owner information, correct? So if in account there is owner information, again one account has how many owners? Let's say only one. So this is 1:1 this side, 1:1 this side, correct? Now tell me what should be the database table design? No, listen carefully, don't jump to the gun. 1:1 means one employee has one account and that one account belongs to one employee. So should it be any different? No, very good. But should we map this association or not? Yes, because we need this information. No, what we should save here? What we should create here? At 1:1 only. But when you say at 1:1, by default, what does Hibernate do? We observed when you ask it to generate the schema, not one more table. In account, it will create employee underscore SL as an extra column. We don't want that, no, because it's already taken care of. So what is it we will specify? Mapped by equal to the instance variable of the employee class. Everybody with me? You are getting that, isn't it? Then we said, all right, what if one employee has many, what was that? Projects, right? So one employee can work on many projects. So what is the, obviously one employee can work on many projects means the instance variable will be a list. So what is this relationship? It is 1:n obviously. But what is the project? A project is something that can be created first without any employees, then employees are added into it. No. That means project has a life cycle of its own. That means you will create a project has an ID, project has a title, project has blah blah blah, all that information, correct? So now one employee can belong to many projects means it is 1:n what? 1:n what? Entity to entity association, correct? But then again the directionality is unique. Now tell me, what do we want, how do we want to save this in your database? Employee table separate, project is obviously an entity. If a project is an entity, separate table for project. Now tell me, how do you link one employee having many projects that he can work on? We have actually two options as we observed. One is ternary table, correct? In ternary table, what will we have? Which employee to indicate? Employee SL. Which project to indicate? Project SL. Employee SL will be same. Project SL can keep changing. Thereby you get 1:n. The other way is in employee table, in project table, for every project you can store the employee SL information. Are you with me? So clearly, if in every project we want to store the employee SL information, here we will need which employee, isn't it? Which means we will need to store the employee reference. Anyway, we'll forego that for now. So tell me the mapping here. At 1 to many, correct? And here if you want to indicate which employee as we discussed now, what will you have? Employee EMP at what? Many to 1. Exactly the opposite end, and we don't want double mapping. So for this, what will we again add? Mapped by, depending on where we want. So here is the option now. If you have this as bidirectional, you have two options now to represent this relationship in data model. A, you have employee table, project table and employee projects table. Or B, employee table, project table. For every row in project table, you can say which employee. So how do you get which one? If I say mapped by here, then what will be there is ternary table. Because for this list, a ternary table will be created. Are you with me? But if I say mapped by here, then what will happen? If I say mapped by here, that means this is already mapped. That means one extra table need not be created. And this is many to 1, no? That means one project should have how many employee? Only one. So what will be created in this table then? Employee SL. Are you understanding? So if I put mapped by here, you get a ternary table. If I put mapped by here, I don't get a ternary table, but I get an additional employee SL. So which one we want depends on us, right? And we can go about implementing what we want. So entity to entity 1:n, uni 1:n, by. And then of course we observe if one employee has what, I don't know, tasks or something like that, or employee has employee belongs to department, and one department can have many employees. Each employee can belong to many departments. Let's say, doesn't make so much sense, but let's say one employee can belong to many departments. Then what will we do? One employee can have many departments means what we should have? Obviously list here. And in department what we should have? One department has ID, name, title, blah blah, and it can have many employees means what we should have? List type to employees, right? And the only way to map this, obviously this can exist on its own, so this is an entity on its own. So tell me, how do you map this? Is nothing but at many to many. So many to many, here also if it is bidirectional, obviously at many to many, correct? Then what will be created? A ternary table is created, but we don't want ternary table to be created 2 times, correct? So in one of the ends we should say mapped by. Are you with me? So that completes our recap of all mappings for your relationships. Everybody clear? So what is it you need to know? What for O model, instance variables, for your is the attribute a simple value type, complex value type, or entity? Is it 1:1, 1:n, m:(n)? Is it unidirectional, bidirectional? Once you know this, then remember what is the data model I want. For that, what should be the mapping I should be providing? That's it. These are the permutation combination mappings we have discussed for has a. Then for is a, we observed already that all we need to do is above the class name, we can use at inheritance, and inheritance strategy we can provide either joined or single table, right? So joined or single table is what we typically go in for, and once we do that, we have mapped inheritance also. So this completes all the permutation combination relationships of O to be mapped to your database. Everybody clear? Before we go forward, any questions on any of the mappings? At one to one, at one to many, at many to one, and at many to many, right? So specifically if you look at entity to entity, right, what and all you have? At one to one, right? At one to many, right? At many to one, at many to many, and you have also at inheritance with strategies, correct? These are the specific mappings for entity to entity relationships, right? So clearly all we need to do is to try it out once in the lab for all permutation combination, and then you will be able to easily relate to it. All right, cool. So this is where we are now, right? So we have understood all the varieties of mappings. Then what is the next thing? We observed we need to know how to interact with Hibernate and how we can ask Hibernate to perform different actions for us. So we observed that also. Let's quickly recap. What is the API that we interact with of session of Hibernate is nothing but your dash API, session API. So in session API, we have simple methods using which we can ask Hibernate to perform our actions. So what are all the simple methods? Let's recap. So obvious basic one is save, where you pass a dash reference, entity reference, a mapped entity reference, right? So you pass that, it will save it, it will generate the rows in the database, and if you are saving an entity, a primary key is generated, which is what will be returned. Question: how many rows will be generated by Hibernate and saved into the database? I am asking Hibernate to save an entity. How many rows will be generated? No? Why? It is not committed. Very good. Remember, Hibernate follows this transactional right behind feature. When does Hibernate actually save it to the database? Is not when you call save, but when you call transaction.commit. When you call transaction.commit, it is at that point in time that actually Hibernate will execute all your prepared statements with data. Until then, it wouldn't have done the synchronization. But let me ask you this. During the commit, how many rows will be generated? For save? For one entity, only one entity. How many rows are generated in your database? One row. Yes or no? No. The answer is? There is only one object. I am giving only one object reference here. How many rows are generated? How many could be? The answer is, by the way, it depends. What does it depend on? Huh? Just now we saw, one employee object I create. One employee ask it to save. You think it is stored in only one employee table? Arey no yaar, employee information is stored as employee row in employee table. What about phone numbers? Stored in employee underscore phone numbers. What about his, what was that? Project, not project. Then other names or something like that you have, that will be stored in emails, sorry. So emails will be stored in employee underscore emails. Yes or no? And if you have turned on cascade, then account information means account will be stored in account table and project information will be stored in project table. Are you following this? How many times am I asking Hibernate to save this only? Once. But it is creating so many rows across tables. So don't assume that one entity means one row. No. One entity could be mapped to many rows and many tables. Everybody clear? But one entity information is saved. Same way, if I want to get one entity information, what is the method I will use? Get. I will specify which entity. That means I will specify entity dot class. Whatever is the entity class I want. Comma what? Your SL number, which is your primary key. Because you're saying get me the entity means you need to give how to identify that entity. No. So I will give that, and obviously what will return is Java object, which you can always downcast. Are you with me? So this will, now again, if you say get, I am saying which entity and I am giving SL number, how many rows will be retrieved from the database? It depends, because if you have an entity with simple value type 1:1, tell me. If entity with simple value type 1:1, then clearly only one entity represents only one row. Then get will return only one row, create only one object, that one row's information, paste it into the object and give it to you. Are you with me, guys? But right now think about this employee we wrote down. One employee give me means you need one employee object, multiple phone number objects, array list objects, right? For creating the list of phone numbers, list of emails. Are you with me, guys? So all of that information has to be gotten. So again, we simply say get, Hibernate will generate, will execute the select, it will pull all the data, beautifully create as many objects, paste everything, link everything together and give us that one employee. Are you with me? Very good. Then if I wanted to, so delete. There are two methods to delete. What are the two methods to delete? Delete and remove, right? So basically again you pass the entity reference. Again, for us we see it as one object, but how many rows can actually be deleted are many. So if I delete an employee, all his phone numbers are gone, all his your emails are gone across the secondary tables. Are you with me? So clearly, and if you have turned on cascade, other things will also go. So bottom line is that delete will delete the entity's information completely from the database. Then we have update. We have update. Update what you pass? Entity reference again. Entity reference, right? Entity reference, right? We observed. If you are anyway going to call save or get, do you really need to call update at all? No. If you are anyway going to call save or get, remember the object that we pass to it will become dash. Very good. So when you simply create a Java object, we say from Hibernate language point of view it is transient, meaning Hibernate does not know about it. Any changes you do, it will not reflect it in your database. If you want Hibernate to keep a track of the changes you do to the object and reflect it in the database by synchronization, you need to make it persistent. How does an object become persistent? One way is when you call save, another way is when you call get, another way is when you call create query and get the list of objects. When you ask Hibernate to give you all the any object, it will give you as a persistent object only, which means any changes I make will be tracked and saved in your database. Okay, then the important method we discussed is create query, and create query what you can pass HQL, right? And on you get a query, and on that query what we can call get result list, correct? And this will give us a list type to your entity objects. Are you with me? This is when I need to retrieve from only one entity information, right? One entity table, if you will, right? One entity is when I want it.
What if it is order by from if I want to retrieve from second table? How to write?
If you want to retrieve from second table or secondary table?
It is
Employee only.
And one more, order by address. Like suppose now if address.
No, you say from employee and order by whatever attribute you want. What if it is a?
Entity only.
How can it be, man? When you say from, you are giving one entity information. You understand? In HQL, when you say from, you give only one entity. You cannot give two entities. You can't say from employee, comma project.
Multiple tables.
Multiple tables are not possible with this. But multiple tables are possible when you create SQL query, right? So for that, what do you have? Create SQL query. When you do create SQL query, what SQL query you can give is any SQL query that you want. You can join any number of tables. At the same time, we observed if you are going to execute a query multiple times, it doesn't make sense to create query all the time for it. That's why we create dashed queries, named queries. We give named queries in annotation so that we can use that query anytime we want by using the name, isn't it? So we'll talk a little bit more on queries after a while. So we have understood the basic CRUD options now. We know how to create, we know how to update, we know how to read, we know how to delete, correct? So there are some other methods, a little bit more about persistence mechanism of Hibernate, we'll discuss in an upcoming session. But right now, we are at a stage where given a requirement, we know how to come up with the POJO model for it, the data OO model for it, we know how annotations we can use, we know how we can ask Hibernate to save, update, retrieve and delete. So it is time now that we learn how to integrate Hibernate with Spring, because we are not interested in building a Hibernate application as a core Java app, the way we have been doing it, where we create the objects, we ask it to save, we retrieve something and show. That is not the kind of application we want. We want an application where end user will give some information, we want to save that. End user will ask for something, we want to show that. End user will update or delete and we want to reflect that. So that means the way to get that is Hibernate is not a framework which is user facing. SpringMVC is a user facing framework. So we want to integrate SpringMVC with Hibernate, right? Then it will become more productive. Then we can also have discussions of more internals of Hibernate to understand how it functions. Well, so let's begin the discussion. Actually, it's a super straightforward topic. All we want is what? We want Hibernate to persist data for us in the database, whichever has been given by user, correct? Or whatever has been given by user. So let's recap our knowledge of SpringMVC first, because if you have come to Hibernate, we should have not said tata bye bye to SpringMVC. So let's recap that. So tell me, for any request that is incoming, the request might contain query string, etc., which contains the user input, right? And that is what we want to save it in through the database. Tell me from SpringMVC point of view, who is the front bodyguard? Dispatcher servlet, right? So dispatcher servlet, we understand, we would have told the web server executes the dispatcher servlet, gives it the request and response. And what does dispatcher servlet call of our POJOs? Now it calls handler, but that's not ours, no. That is Spring's, right? So it finds out, it interacts with handler, fine. It will interact with handler, right? But then our code, which is our code which will be called? Our controller will be called, right? So our controller POJO are ordinary Java classes with methods. But what kind of POJOs are there? POJOs marked at what? Our POJO controllers are marked at what? At controller, correct? So they are classes which are marked at controller, correct? And we would have specified which method we want that should be executed for an incoming requested URI. How do we specify that? At? Very good. At request mapping. So POJO controllers will have at controller at the class header, and against every method above the method header will say at request mapping to indicate when should this method be executed when a request comes for which URI. You remember that? So that means this mapping is done. Now what will dispatcher servlet do? It will simply call our method. But then we observed when we ask dispatcher servlet to call our method, we can ask. We can ask many things. Like one of the things we can ask is to do data type conversion for user inputs, right? And put it inject it into a what? Bean object, correct? So we will ask it to inject it into a bean object. And not only that, on our bean, in our bean against instance variables, we would have turned on dash. No, auto varying not for this bean contains user inputs, that's all. No. This bean contains all user inputs. Not only we want user inputs injected in a bean, we want a dash-ated bean. Validated bean. So what we would have done in bean class, above instance variables, at not null, at pass, at range, and all those validations we would have sprinkled. Now, how do we ask this to the SpringMVC to validate the bean and give it to us? How do we ask for the bean is through our controller Pojo's parameter in your argument list, correct? And how do you say give me a validated bean? At what? At valid. Yes or no, guys? So in your method header you will have at valid. That means you are asking the framework to trigger the validations, execute it and give it to you, correct? And along with that, what do you ask for? Not only the validated bean, but how do you ask for results of the validation? No, you martogidira kashta. So public, model okay. So public class, whatever, home controller or whatever you have, right? So you would have marked this at controller. So let's say there is a method called, we have created called register. And what should be the return data type of your controller Pojo methods? String. And here what would you have specified? At request mapping, execute this when a request comes for /register URL pattern. You are with me so far? And now tell me, we want what to register? We want all user inputs to register or not? And how will we ask it as? We will say give it to us in regbean. Yes or no? Give it to us in regbean. And what will we say? At valid regbean. Whenever you ask validations to be done, what do you want along with the validations? Whether the validations have successful or not. So what do I ask? What result? Binding result. Very good. So binding result. Right? So binding result will hold what? All the results of validation. And then we want to save it in as a model attribute, etc. You will have model attribute, double quotes, reg for the form action linking, right? So at valid, at model attribute, whatever is the bean label, and then binding result. And then of course, if you want to store some data which is accessible to this, you will have to store it in your model. So Spring model, correct? So these are the minimum things you ask for in a user input view use case. In a user input view use case, we want all the user inputs in a bean, which is validated. We want the results of validation, and to show him messages, we want model. Everybody clear? So then what we are going to do here, tell me. What are we going to do here? What will you do inside this one? First thing we'll check is what, Ray? Whether the result of validation has succeeded. If it has failed, what we should do? No, that means what we should do? If the result, tell me the logic, result dash errors, has errors. If the result has errors, where we should go? No business logic, nothing. Directly go back to register. And remember, whatever string we return, what is returned is a string. Whatever string we return, whom will this dispatcher servlet interact with is your view resolver. And what will it do? Forward the same request and response to that particular JSP. So that means if you return register, what JSP will be executed? Register JSP. And in register JSP, we would have used Spring tags, Spring tags. And the Spring tags will display what? It will hold the user inputs. Yes or no? And it will display the error messages next to the element. Are you with me? Guys, are you following? Okay. So this is for when the validation fails. If the validation succeeds, now tell me what we should do. Business logic. Where is business logic? Where do we code business logic? Do we code it in your controller Pojo method? No. Where do you code it? Service. Very good. So clearly we would have created some service classes, service business logic holding classes, correct? And what will they have? Ordinary methods. It's a more Pojo with ordinary methods, correct? Now, what do we want to do? If the validation succeeds, we want to call a particular method. To call a particular method, what should the controller Pojo first have? It should have a dash to the service. It should have a reference to the service object. That means service object is a dependency of your controller. Any dependency, we code it as a dash variable, instance variable. And if you code this as instance in home controller now, you would have coded whatever service, some BL service or whatever we would have named it, right? Service as an instance variable will create. Now this instance variable should be wired. So how do we specify that? At auto wired. Are you following this? That means automatically link is there. So that means else can I call this service dot method name or service method name? Service dot register. That means there is a method called register here also. Correct? What I should give as parameter? Yeah? Bean. Validated bean. Whatever bean we got with validation, we pass it. Are you with me? Now tell me what should the service do? Service, what it should do? It should interact with DAO, right? It could interact with Hibernate, but it's a good practice that service doesn't interact with any data persistent store. Let DAO do it. So what is DAO? It is also a POJO. That means DAO also will have ordinary methods, register, blah, blah, blah. So now what do we want to do? We want to call this register method and pass your bean. But when can you do that? Is when your service has a dash to POJO, dash to DAO reference. That means DAO is a dependency for service. That means in service, where is that? In service, BL service class, whatever we would have coded. Tell me what we would have had. DAO reference, DAO is equal to semicolon and at auto word. Are you with me? Now tell me, you mark controller that controller, but service what do you map it as? At service. And same way, your DAO class, BL DAO or whatever you have, you will map it as at repository. At repository. Are you with me? Now, so far, so we will have some public, whatever string, register, blah, blah. We will take the bean. It's the same method, similar kind of method. We will take the reg bean. And now, what will we do here is DAO dot register. I understand theoretically that's enough for now, because I'm going to show this to you. So, we will pass the bean as parameter. So, where has the bean come now? Initially, we got the bean in the controller. From there, we pass the validated bean to the method of your service. From here, we are passing the bean to your DAO. Now tell me, what do we want to do with this bean? Save it to your database, isn't it? Now, who should the DAO interact with? Hibernate. So that means DAO now has a dependency on dash. Hibernate. But Hibernate is a Brahmand, man. Specifically, what does DAO need? It has to interact with sessions, correct? But how do you get a session? Session factory. So, DAO has a dash on session factory. Dependency on session factory, correct? So, that means DAO has a dependency on session factory means what variable we should create in DAO? Session factory instance variable. So, that's all we will be doing. In your DAO, we will have a session factory instance variable. Are you with me? If you have a session factory instance variable, it is a dependency. Who do we ask to inject the dependency array? Who do you ask to inject the dependency array? Spring. How do you do this? Either, if you are coding the classes, you will say at auto-word, etc. Session factory, are we going to code? No. So, we are going to dash figure then. Remember, your dispatcher servlet is also given some spring servlet.xml. Can we configure beans there or not? Can we configure beans there or not? We will configure a bean for session factory. Are you with me? So if you configure a bean for session factory, what does it mean? Spring container will create the instance of that session factory and it will give it to us whenever we ask. How do we ask? Instance variable you will have now in your DAO, whatever BL, DAO, etc. that you are going to be creating. You will have an instance variable called session factory. Alright, SF or something. And all I need to say is what? That's it. Are you with me? So I'll repeat again. Two things we will be doing. In our spring servlet.xml, we will be configuring a bean. That configuration of the bean is nothing for your Hibernate session factory. What did we do in our core Java program? If we wanted to interact with Hibernate, what did we do? How did we get the session factory? How did we get the session factory, guys? Did we create that new configuration of .configure, .build session factory, etc. or not? Did we write the code to create the session factory or not? That's something we are not going to do in your Spring integration with Hibernate. Who are we going to delegate? Who should responsibly manage the session factory object is Spring. After all, Ray, how many session factory objects you want for your entire project? Only one. We want it to be treated as a singleton. By default, any bean you ask Spring to manage, it will treat it as a -ton. That means no brainer. So all we are going to do is in Spring servlet.xml, we are going to configure. We are going to tell Spring that look, this is my session factory. You create an object, you keep it in your memory, and whenever I ask you, you simply give it to me. Are you with me? That's it. So how to do that configuration is what you need to learn. You understand? How to do this configuration and how to ask, we already know through your auto-wired. And now what you can do in your register method or whatever you have, public string register or whatever, you will get the reg bean. And now tell me what we should do here. We already have session factory. What we should do? Directly open session. Directly sf.open session. Directly can you do begin transaction? Now, what we should have done so that we can save? Okay, what do you want to save into the database?
Create objects of
What do you want to save? Regbean. So the regbean is a dash tt. Entity. That means what we should have done in regbean class? Annotations. At entity, regbean should now have an SL, at ID, at generated value, and based on whatever relationship we have understood, correct mappings. And how do we ask Hibernate to save this now? Session.save. That's it. Are you with me? That's all. Automatically this bean data will now be saved in your database. How many tables could it be? One table or more tables possible? Array, any number of tables possible. Why do we care? How do we ask Hibernate to save is just by calling session.save. Are you with me? Same way, maybe at a later time we will build an application where user will click on one hyperlink and we should show him that objects or that information. Where will that information be? Database. How do you ask for it? So a method called, we'll code a method called get. When he clicks on a hyperlink, we will get the SL number of that that entity. What we should do in that get? One more method get in DAO. What should we do in get? Already we have session factory. What we should do there? Again get hold of session. Again be in a transaction. Session dot dash. Get. Pass the SL number which user clicked in your application. And will we get an object or not? What object we get, can we display it to the user as data or not? That's it. That's get. User clicks on delete. User clicks on delete. There is one row, he clicks on delete. When he clicks on delete, what we should do? Again, when he clicks on delete, one request will come, dispatch a servlet, controller POJO, based on request mapping. Based on that, we call a service method and we delete, and that delete will call DAO delete. And what we should accept as input? When user clicks delete, we need to know what he is deleting. Let's say we already know the ID. So if we already know the ID, what we should do? In your DAO one method, you will simply get hold of session dot delete. You either do a query delete or you do a direct delete or whatever the case. Are you following? That means which becomes super easy to code now? DAOs. All DAO will now contain CRUD methods. Create, update, delete and retrieve. And there we are not going to write SQL, we are not going to write JDBC, everything Hibernate will do it for us. Are you with me? So we need to just see this in action of things coming together. So the only thing we need to learn now is what do we configure in Spring Servlet.xml, how do we configure session factory? How do we configure session factory in Spring Servlet.xml? That's it. This is the integration, guys. You configure session factory in Spring Servlet.xml and automatically Spring will now take care of Hibernate for us. Whenever you want Hibernate, you just ask. Hibernate will be injected for you. Well, so to configure, so I will show it to you in code itself. To configure session factory, tell me what input should I give for session factory? To configure session factory, what input should I give for session factory? I'll take that back. Whoever is creating session factory object, session factory is a what? Session factory is created as a heavyweight object based on the configurations of Hibernate. So now tell me what and all configuration should I provide? URL, user ID, password, dash name, driver name, fully qualified class name, your dialect, connection pooler, all of this information should I give or not? Now where were we giving all this? Hibernate.cfg.xml. Why we want to manage one more XML? Anyway we are configuring in Spring Servlet XML now. There only we will provide all this configuration. Are you with me? So what we are going to configure are 3 elements in Spring Servlet.xml. In Spring Servlet.xml, we are going to configure 3 elements. One element, remember, we want to turn on connection pooling. We have not used that in our core Java program. We were directly asking Hibernate to use the driver to establish connection via driver manager. Instead, what we want to do is we are going to configure what we call as a data source. Alright? So let me just give you as points and then you will see how to configure it. So we are going to ask Hibernate, we are going to configure what we call as data source. And what will be attached to this data source is nothing but a connection pooler library. So what is a connection pooler? We understand the mechanics or the working of it in the sense that connection pooler establishes many connections to the database and keeps it ready. So that anytime you want a connection, it takes it from the pool and gives it to you, so that anytime you close the connection, it puts it back to pool. That means already so many connections are open to the database. Are you with me? That's a connection pooler. Already libraries are there. There are standard libraries used in all applications, Commons, DBCP, or C3P0, it's called C3PO, etc. So they all come to you as Java programs, which are nothing but as your jar files. So you will just download these jar files, that's all. Place them in your lib folder, I'll show it to you. And then what will you configure? Data source. There you will configure which connection pooler you want. Now tell me, who will need the information? Who will be establishing the connection now to the database? Who will be establishing connection to database? Is it Spring? Is it Hibernate? Is it connection pooler? Who is it? Answer in question, yaar, more or less. Who will be establishing connection to database? Connection pooler. So to connection pooler, what inputs I should give? Driver name, URL, user ID, password, yes or no? All of this information I need to give it to your connection pooler. That means I'll configure all of these things in your data source. Are you with me? And then, using this data source, whom should I give this data source to? This connection pooler, whom I should give it to? Hibernate. That means I need to configure my session factory. Are you with me? To my session factory, who becomes an input? This data source becomes an input. Because who is going to interact with your connection pooler is Hibernate now. That means data source is a dependency for Hibernate now. Any dependency we are going to ask the Spring to inject. That means in session factory, we'll ask it to inject data source. Same way, what is it we need to tell Hibernate? Other informations like which is your dialect and all that information. Plus, what if we should ask you to scan? Remember your hibernate.cfg.xml? Mapping. That means all our classes which are entity classes, we should ask Hibernate to scan the annotation? Yes or no? So that means we will specify instead of class names, we can directly specify packages to scan. Packages to scan. Are you with me? That becomes an input. The third thing which becomes an input is a transaction manager. We need to provide a transaction manager, the one who manages transactions. Hibernate gives us the ability to commit or to open a transaction or begin a transaction and commit. But who is the transaction manager can actually be externalized. So it's a slightly detailed topic which we don't need to get into as of the moment. I'll repeat. To manage transactions, there are other libraries just to manage transactions, right? They implement typically what is called a J2E standard called Java Transaction API JTA. But that's not our botheration. Who already knows how to handle transactions is Hibernate. So we don't need to use an external tool. If you want, we can. So we just need to configure Hibernate only as transaction manager and then give that as an input to your session factory. So what does session factory have as inputs now? It knows which connection pooler to use. Connection pooler knows what is the driver name, URL, user ID, passwords, etc. to connect to the database. Session factory will know which database through dialect. Hibernate knows now which classes should be scanned in our code for entity. It also knows who is the transaction manager. So these three things we copy paste in our Spring Servlet.xml. That's it. When you do this, your Hibernate is now integrated with Spring. So let's quickly jump into an example and see it functioning, and you will be able to better relate to it then. Sorry guys, these classes are slightly drab and you need to concentrate a little bit. We will come back to wonderful classes where you are going to enjoy every session when we start Angular. Okay, so right now when you are looking at integration and all these things, you have to bear with the drudgery of the theory. So let's see this quickly. Now, Okay, so steps. Tell me the steps. What will you do first? Step 0. Everybody help me come up with the steps. Step 0. Requirements. Okay, I'll tell you the requirement. All I want to do is implement a register use case. User registers, we want to save the data to database. This is our first basic example we want to build. Tell me, what should I do first? No, what you need to have first? Jar files, man. So best thing to do is to -1, I will tell you. Import one example dash file, var file. Because when you import a var file, will you get all the jar files and all with it for you? Is it easy to copy paste or not? Import a var file. Then step 0, what will we build? Create project. And which project it is? Dynamic web project. And I will name it as Reg app or something like that. Are you with me? Register app or student app or whatever you want. Alright? Then what will I copy paste? Hello? Copy paste jar files. From where? Would we have imported a var file? We would have got all the jar files in the lib or not? I copy paste all the jar files. Now tell me what jar files will be there at a high level? What and all jar files? Hibernate jar files. Hello? SpringMVC jar files. Database doesn't have jar. Driver jar files. Correct? Connection pooler jar files. Very good. Connection pooler jar files. All of these jar files will be there. Okay. Copy paste jar files. And then what do I copy paste? Right? Yes. Copy paste web.xml and SpringSparlet.xml. Are you following? Now, remember when you copy paste this, what you should do? Double check. Tell me in web.xml, what should be double check? Yes. What should be mapped here? Slash should be mapped to of dispatcher servlet. Yes or no? So, not SDS, sorry, dispatcher servlet. Then tell me, this is more now. We need to double check. What we need to double check? In SpringServlet.xml, let us see how much you remember I say. Double checking. Tell me, double check what? Huh? Okay, component scan. Turn on. Very good. No load on startup. Load on startup is here. Web.xml. So web.xml slash should be mapped with load on startup. Everybody with me? Guys, don't simply write down, you have to understand this is very important. So in your web.xml which you copy paste, you check whether slash is mapped to fully qualified class name of dispatcher servlet and load on startup has been enabled or not. Now in SpringServlet.xml what we should do? Turn on component scan for our packages. Correct? Okay, done. Then MVC colon. Very good. Annotation driven. This is to turn on what? Hello? SpringMVC annotations, correct? Because when you do component scan, it turns on only core Spring annotations. You wanted to read SpringMVC annotations also? That's why you have MVC colon annotation driven. Alright, cool. Then what? Huh? IRVR, very good. Remember, you can go back to your notes if you want. So, configure, what should be there is view resolver should be configured. Correct? Should be configured. Configured with what properties? Suffix and correct, suffix and prefix. Right? This is nothing but your IRVR bean. And remember, this is going to be configured as a what? Hello? Dash element. Bean element. By the way, before this, what we will create? We have copy pasted the jar files. Before,
lib folder.
Very good. Not lib folder. Yeah. You will copy paste it to lib folder and arthite. Yes. Create JSP's folder inside WebINF. You remember, guys? and dashes, resources folder. Where did you create this? No, outside the WebINF. Correct? In your web content, because resources will hold all your static resources. Okay? So, import the jar file, war file, create the dynamic web project, copy paste the jar files from lib folders, create the JSPs folder and resources folder, copy paste the Spring Servlet.xml, web.xml, double check by seeing. We don't change anything here. No, everything is. What is the only thing we might have to change? Suffix. Correct? No, because you should now point to our webinf/jsp's folder. Very good. Then, what we should double check? What we should double check is whether, maybe we are not discussed this, I will show it to you. Turn on. Now remember, when you map slash to dispatcher servlet, when does web server execute dispatcher servlet tree? When request comes for what resource? Now, slash means what? Any resource. Any means which resource? Static or dynamic? No. Both are. So even when a request comes for HTML or JPG, what will web server execute is dispatcher servlet's service method? Are you with me, guys? So it will execute our dispatcher servlet service method even if a request comes for slash. Now tell me, even if request comes for static resources, now tell me where are we storing our static resources? Very good. Not inside WebINF here. Outside WebINF, inside a folder called resources. Correct na? This resources folder we are creating to store static resources only. Now what we should do? No. In resources we have created PDF, JPG, HTML. Static resources are there now. Now tell me what we should tell dispatcher servlet.
Just a class name.
Just understand this carefully, guys. We have mapped slash to dispatcher servlet. That means we have told web server, let a request comes for anything, static or dynamic, directly execute dispatcher servlet service. Now what we should tell dispatcher servlet? If a request is coming for static resource, what we should tell dispatcher servlet? To scan, to look at that resource in the resources folder, correct? So what we want to do is, ideally we want to do a bypass, in the sense when a request comes for a static resource, should controller be executed? Service, DAO, Hibernate, database. None of those things should be executed. Direct bypass of all this. When you want to go to, I don't know, Goa or Hubli or whatever, right? And you go over Tumkur. Should you go inside Tumkur? Inside Tumkur theory. City not hogana. No yaar, you will take the bypass. The bypass. City will be down, you will be going above, isn't it? So same way, if a request comes for a static resource, why should it go controller method, injection of service method, injection DO method, Hibernate database. Why all this here? Direct bypass, no. So which means what we need to configure here is turn on bypass for static resource request. Again, we are not going to code. We just do copy paste. All this double check, that's all. Everything is there already. We are double checking. Are you with me? Then turn on. Let's see, you remember. What else? These 4 things are mandatory. Apart from that, what else configurations we should be there in Spring Servlet.xml? Do you want to become national figure or international figure? What do you want to turn on? Internationalization. Yes or no? Internationalization, remember resource bundle? So, turn on internationalization elements, right? So, what is it? We'll have some messages, right? Some resource bundles and whatnot. So, I'll just say turn on internationalization. So this requires, actually how many elements are? 3 elements. It will involve one interceptor, one locale change resolver and message source. 3 different elements, right? Message source, right? one locale resolver, basically change resolver, and one interceptor. Right? So remember, why do we need all this? Message sources for what reason? Remember, internationalization means what? We will not hard code content in English or anything in any of the JSPs or code. Rather, we will have dash. What key? What will we have? We have resource bundle files. Remember, resource bundle files we will have keys, and against that we will have equal to values. Value is the content. So in our code, what will we use? Only keys. Who will replace the key with the value? Springman. Spring will replace for a given key the value. It will pick up from the correct resource bundle file. How many resource bundle files will we have? As many languages we want to support. We want to support 5 languages. 5 resource bundle file we will have. In all the 5 resource bundle file, what will we have? Same keys. And in our code we will use keys. Wherever there is the key, it will be replaced with value. For that, which message? What is the file name that we have for resource bundle file? We need to configure through message source. Locale change resolver will help in changing of the locale. Are you with me? When user clicks this, the locale should change, etc. Interceptor is for the same thing as well. So basically turn on internationalization, basically copy paste. Alright? And then tell me now what did we learn extra? What else should be there? Hello? From Hibernate point of view, what should be there? We just now discussed. So first you configure data source. Then you configure transaction manager, both of which are a prerequisite for session factor. Are you with me? Again, this we are fundamentally going to copy paste and change only the values if required. That's it. These are all the configurations we are going to what? Double check, that's all. We don't need to do anything because it will already be there. Everybody clear? So now, after all this, comes our first step. We have still not come to first step. We are just, looking at the steps to perform. Alright. Next is simple, hopefully. Tell me what we should do. Very good. Create, no, don't create Pojo. What you should create? Create your home page. If you are building the first thing, right? Home.jsp. Then build what? Give me Pojo, but which Pojo? Home controller. That means build your Pojo controller. Then build your, what does Pojo controller depend on? Come on everybody. Service. Very good. Build Pojo or service Pojo. Then what does service depend on? Build a DAO. Are you following? So all these dependencies you will have them be auto-wired. And now tell me, in my Pojo controller, I will have method specifically for this action with @request URI, etc. Then what we should do? Deploy and test. So these are the steps we will be taking to build our application, right? And of course we should build an error JSP as well. So this is, so I'll just make it generic, right? I'll just say build JSP, right? Build JSP, build the corresponding controller. See, how many times we build the controller service DAO is only once. But for every action in the JSPs, we'll have methods there. So basically build Pojo controller or methods, right? Whatever methods we want for it. You will understand what I mean. Steps for Spring MVC Hibernate integration, right? So I'll send this to you. With great cost you have taken it down. I will send it to you. Okay, so now everybody ready? Okay, not ready, but here we go. Alright, so we don't have a choice. Now I will give you a jar file. I will give you a var file. That var file is going to be Spring Hibernate integration app.var, or whatever I'm going to build now, I'll give it to you as var file. So -1 step is there. Alright, and next what I should do? Now that we have gone through the steps, don't look at what you have written. Try to recollect from memory and tell me what I should do. Build first. Dynamic web project. So go to dynamic web project. File new dynamic web project. Alright, cool. What should be the name? Some badge 90 Rejap or Spring Rejap or SH Rejap. Alright. Web module version 2.5. Why? Because we have web.xml explicitly. 3.0 means web.xml should be annotation based. So done. Now tell me the steps 3. Recollect from memory. What should I do? No, before copy paste. Folder. Where I should create the folder? Inside WebINF, right click on WebINF, new folder. What will I name it? JSPs. You can name it anything else. Views also. Outside WebINF, in web content, new resources. Very good. Everybody clear? Okay, done. Then what I should do? Yeah, copy paste. What should I copy paste it from? Whom should I copy paste it from? From the jar files from the other applications lib folder. So all jars. Copy, paste. Okay. Copy, paste. Done. So observe Madi at a high level. Look at this. Dash. Hibernate jars. Dash. Andre ಏನು ಹೆಸರೇ ಬಿಡಿ. Driver. Dash. Spring. Core spring. You see? Dash. Spring MVC. Are you with me? So Spring MVC jars, Core Spring jars, Hibernate jars, driver jar. Where is that? Other jars are there, some dependencies jars, we don't really care about it. Where is this Yappa man? Hey. No. This fellow is here. What is that? Connection pooler jar. Commons DBCP. DBCP stands for database connection pooler. Are you with me? Basically, all jars copy pasted or not? Tick. And then what should I copy paste next? XML. Which XML? Servlet, Spring Servlet and web.xml. Where should I paste? Inside WebINF. What will it ask? Override. H to all. Now, dash check. Double check web.xml fellow. What should be configured? Slash URL pattern. What is it configured to? Dispatcher Servlet. What has been turned on? Close it. Because double check pass. Then double check Spring Servlet.xml. Tell me, what is there first? Component scan, right? Component scan this is for what? Our package, no? Already some packages have been mentioned. I will remove it so that we can put it up ourselves. But component scan is there. Then what I should turn on? Spring MVC annotations, right? Done. Then what should I configure? Dash bean. IRVR, internal resource view resolver. Already copy paste. There is a prefix and a suffix. Suffix will always be .jsp. Value. Do I need to change this? No, because what is the name of our folder anyways we created is JSPs only. So we double check whether it is correct. Got it? Then what we need to configure? Static resources, right? We copy paste this. What we are telling is whenever a request comes for, so look at this, it has mapping, property and location. What we are communicating here is whenever a request comes for /resources/ anything. Star means anything. Whenever a request comes for /resources, let me change this, /res/ anything, then where am I asking it to search for the static files? Which is the location? In resources folder. Are you with me? So this is your bypass. Whenever a request comes for /res/ anything, then search for that static resource in resources. Give it off to the client. You will understand. It's a very small thing. Then, what is configured? Hello? Message source is for what? Internationalization what? Resource bundle files. So message source, what is given here? For the messages, what is given? Base name. What is the name we have given? Resources /messages. This resources means folder. What is the folder name I changed to now? RES. So in the resources, I need to have files named messages. Messages what? Messages underscore, hello? Remember, message internationalization, messages underscore EN, messages underscore FR, messages underscore HN. Yes or no? All resource bundle files are nothing but text files with the same keys, but values in different languages. The file name will be same, but what will be concatenate the file name with is your ISO language code. FRFR, HNIN, ENUS, ENUK. Why do I feel like I'm talking to myself? Okay, I'll show you. Alright? So this basic message source. You need to know, see, copy paste is very easy, but why are we copy pasting? We need to know what is the damn fellow doing. Alright? So we need to know that. Then what has been configured is locale resolver. What is the default locale? That means the default resource bundle file that will be used is English fellow. Are you with me? Then what is configured is your interceptor. It is the change interceptor. Meaning if the user changes the locale, then automatically that new resource bundle file should be used for that. Anyway, we have copy pasted it. Fine. Then what do we need to configure? Data source. Remember, each one is configured as a what now? Bean. They are all beans. We are not coding these classes though. Spring and all the jar files have it. Spring will only manage it. Are you with me? Data source. To data source, what we need to give as input array? Data source is who, by the way? No. Data source is who, by the way? Data source is who, by the way? Connection pooler. So connection pooler is nothing but one class which implements data source interface. Basically, we need to give fully qualified class name. We don't know that, we'll copy paste it happily. Are you with me? But look at this. This is nothing but a dash class. Commons DBCP. I showed you the jar file or not? Inside that jar file, this class is sitting. This is your connection pooler class. You are not expected to remember this. Don't try to by heart it. It's a copy paste, right? And to that data source, to that connection pooler, what we are giving as input? Which is the driver? Our HSQL DB driver? Which is the URL, user ID, password. All this will change, by the way. Right now it is all the same in my system. Are you with me? If it is MySQL, what I should do? MySQL driver, MySQL URL, MySQL user ID, MySQL password. Are you with me? Okay. Then what we need to configure? Session factory. We'll come to that. Okay. I told you one small step as wrong, but that's okay. So I'll correct it. So session factory. Session factory, what is the input array? Data source. How do you pass input? This is an object. Bean is an object. How do you pass this bean object as a parameter to another bean? Core spring, nepcarbeko. Reference. Very good. So what is the reference that is injected? Data source. You don't need to remember all these other things. Then what else do I need to give to Hibernate? Packages to scan for our mapping. So packages to scan. Com, Uttara, blah, 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 whatever it is. Whatever our packages is going to be. Are you with me? Then what we need to give to Hibernate? Properties of Hibernate? What? Dialect, show SQL format, generate statistics. Do we want HBM to DDL or not? Everything that was there in hibernate.cfg.xml is now configured as properties for this one session factory. Are you with me? And last, what is configured? Transaction manager. I said transaction manager is an input to data source. Data source is an input to transaction manager. Right? That's one mistake I did. My apologies. So it's a copy paste. Again, which transaction manager we are using? Hibernate. We can use something else also, but we are not going to bother. Hibernate will manage it. And to that, what is the input that we are injecting is session factory. So data source, first is data source, your connection pooler, then is your session factory, because data source becomes an input to session factory, then is your transaction manager, your session factory becomes an input to transaction manager. All this configuration, lot of things to understand, but coding nothing, configuration nothing, because we copy paste. Basically what step did we finish? Yeah, what is that step? In that we double check step. All we have done is double check everything sarigide. Now we are ready to code. You might not be ready, but I will code. Just kidding. Alright. So we are ready to code. And where do we begin with? JSPs. Right click new, what? Oh, by the way, I did not mention this. Let us also copy paste the resource bundle files, so that we don't need to start from scratch. Where should I copy paste the resource bundle files? Inside resources. So there is already some content, so that we don't need to start from scratch, right? So resource bundle files contains data, messages. Now tell me, what JSP will I create first? Home.jsp. Done. Now tell me, what in every JSP of SpringMVC application, what I should do? Taglib. Very good. Taglib. Specify URI. Control space choose. What tags are? There are only two Spring tags, /tags and /tag/form. Do we have an input form in home page? No. So that's why I'll import only /tags. I'll give a prefix equal to some st. Are you with me? Spring tags it represents. Now tell me, what is the first thing I want in my home page here? Hello everybody. Header. What I should say? Home page. Yes or no? Hey. Yes or no? Yes or no? No. You see, if I type home page, then what content will it be shown in? What language will this home page be shown in? Do you want hard code? What I should do? Oh, Allah mat kotidira re. Hello? Tag. Thank you. Just now we have imported tag. So what tag? st colon what? Message. We have to pull it from the resource bundle file or not? Let's look at the resource bundle file. What is it we want to show? What is it we want to show? Do we want to show this or not? For that, what we need to pull this content for this key. Use this key in st colon message. What is it? Code equal to key. Do you remember this? Okay, if not, you gotta adjust Madi, right? We don't have a choice. That is, in st colon message means pull me the content of this key. From which resource bundle file? English fellow or French fellow? No. It depends on user fellow. Right? If user wants French, he has set his language as French, automatically will it pull it from French resource bundle file or not? Alright. I know it's a lot, but we don't have a choice. So that's why we are discussing integration at the end. Anyway, so homepage header came, man. What else do you want? No, not form. Homepage. Click to Hibernate. Click to hyperlink. Okay. Click to what, Ray? Click to. Remember, ಮತ್ತೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಅವಾಗ ಸರ್ ನಾನು ಯಾರು ನಾನು ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾರು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನೀವು ಯಾರು click to register and we will have href. Correct? No? Click to register. Do you want to show click to register or not? No. Why no? Thank you. We should not hard code in English. We should pull it from the resource bundle file. How do I pull? st colon message. Very good. Code equal to key. Allow property file. What key? No tell. Click to register is there. This key. This fellow. This is the key. Right? Are you with me? Then when he clicks on it, where should request go? What slash? Hey, register. You know, register page and not register. Open register view. Are you with me? One more. Let's try. So then ahref. After he registers, what will we ask him to do? Login. So should we say click to login directly? No. st colon message. Code equal to give the key for showing click to login. Not even there. So I'll copy this. Add this key. Hyperlink.homepage.login. See, by the way, the key could be anything. There is no logic here. We have come up with it. It's a hyperlink in home page named for login, right? Click to login. Okay, so this becomes the key. I use it. Are you with me, guys? When he clicks it, where should request go? Open, login, view. So now we have built home page. But to serve this home page, dash roller we need to build. Home controller. So resources, right click new, not resources, not these resources. Anyway, right click on a project new class. All right. So I'll build it as home controller. com.uttara.spring.controllers. I'll create a package called controllers. Remember, the best practice for naming is all controller related classes put in controllers package. All service related classes and interfaces put it in services package. All DAO util related classes you put it in DAO package. Logically they will be in the same group. So com.uttara.spring.controllers. Home controller. Home controller. What we should do? Mark it as what? Add controller. Hello, Baro? Rainbow? Oh, okay. So add control. Okay, add controller. And now tell me, what I should have as method? Hello? Open reg. Open register, show register, or whatever, right? Or no, before that. Show home page. Tell me, when do we want this to be executed? Add request mapping when request comes for slash. So show home. Do I need is there anything to be done? Prerequisition, hit the database, anything? Nothing. So what I should return? Direct home. Everybody with me? When you return home, whatever the string you return, that named JSP will be displayed to the user. Okay, that means this home.jsp is displayed now. Now user will click to register, open register view, request will come. So what I should build? One more what? No. Open register, no, show register, whatever you wanted to call it, right? So show register. So show register, when should this method be called? At request mapping, only when a request comes for open register view. You are with me or not, guys? So when user clicks this open register view, then only call this show register. Then what we should return? Which JSP should be shown to the user now? What we should code then? Register JSP. Are you with me? Okay. So let me build a dummy register JSP for now. So register JSP. Remember to put it in JSP's folder. Tell me first, what I should do in every JSP? Tag lib. Tell me which tag lib? Wrong answer. URI equal to which one, Ray? Format tag. Both. You see, form is for input form elements. Spring tags for form elements. The slash tags is for internationalization. Both we need, right? So prefix equal to SF, and one more slash tags. This is, I'll say prefix equal to ST. SF means form elements. This ST means your messages, your internationalization. Tell me, what I should have first in the body? Hello? Spring tags, which one? Message, correct, no? Dash equal to, code equal to. What do I want here? Key for what? Key for registering or not? So copy, paste. You are following, right? Okay. So enough. Enough means not for today, man. To demonstrate. Okay, now. Now what will we do? To test. So right click, deploy and test. Okay, let's test it. I gotta bear with me in today's session. Okay, done. This fellow is all starting and all that. So we'll fire up an external browser window and pull it up. And we copy and we paste. Okay, big 404. Batch 90 sh rich app. Let's see why. Go to console. Sorry, resource folder. So what? Okay, first things first. This is what I want you to do. Right click on the project and close all the unrelated projects. Okay? And second thing I want you to do, and by the way, when you close unrelated projects, there you go, Eclipse what are the shut down only. Sir, ನೀವು ಈ ಥರ ಎಲ್ಲ Hibernate ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು ಕತೆ. Right? So, shut down. Let's launch him again. Simply to bring a smile on your face. No. Alright, so this will light up. What were we trying to do? Close, no? Oh, I didn't even close. Which one was our app here? Batch 90. This fellow. No. Our project is only gone, huh? SH Raja, where is it? Oh, it's here, it's here. Yeah. Are you sure? Close. It closes everything, alright? But please note it closes servers. So right click on servers and open project. Okay, servers should not be closed. And go to your servers tab. You would have been deploying many applications. Right? Remove every one of them. Right click, remove. Keep only your project there. Then it will be fast in starting, fast in your debugging as well. So right click on the project, run as run on server. I am still not convinced why it is not working. So let's double check. So let's see whether everything is there in the right places. Oh, I named this resources, you are right. Okay. Ayo. Okay. It could be anything, doesn't matter. I don't need to do this, but I'm doing it. I could kill the service. So what is it? I'm going to rename this as well. RES, right? Yeah, right. Right click, run as run on server. Now remember, when the web server starts, let's go through what the web server does. When the web server starts, it scans our dash. Give me 1 second. Okay, while it is starting, tell me now, when the web server starts, what does the web server scan? Very good, it scans our project, web.xml is there, it reads it. When it reads web.xml, what does it do? Load on startup we have enabled. So what does it load? What does it load? It loads dispatcher servlet. Loads, initializes, loads, instantiates, initializes, dispatcher servlet. Are you with me, guys? This is very important. Now listen to me carefully. So when the web server has started now, it has already loaded, instantiated, initialized dispatcher servlet. Remember, if you go back in memory, when the dispatcher servlet is initialized, what is started? Very good. Spring container started. When Spring container started, what does Spring container read? Spring servlet XML file. In Spring servlet.xml, what have we configured? Beans. So will it now create bean objects for everything or not? So it will create a bean object for what? Transaction manager, session factory, data source, your local resolver, your message source, your internal resource view resolver. All of this it creates, injects everything, keeps it ready. Same way, we have asked it to scan our package. Correct? So context component scan. Array, which package we should ask it to scan? Which one? Our is which one? Controllers. Are you with me? All of this it does. So obviously I have changed this now, I need to restart. Are you with me? So already the Spring container started, it is already scanned, created objects, injected dependencies, wired them together, everything is done and dusted. Now let's test. Nothing is happening. Oh, it's 7070, no? I have changed the port. There you go. This is the what request? First request for slash. Let's go through the full story again. When a request comes, dispatcher servlet is executed. Dispatcher servlet will ask the handler which controller POJO and which method to be called. The handler will look at the annotation for slash. What have we configured? Home controller and show home. That method is executed. What does the show home method return? Home. Because show home returns home, what is being executed, what will the dispatcher servlet do is interact with your internal resource view resolver. Internal resource view resolver, what will it do to home? -x and -x. Prefix and suffix, it will concat, that it will give it as a return, and that will be the path where the dispatcher servlet will now forward. And that is why what JSP is executed is home JSP. Are you with me, guys? But when home JSP is executed, what is registered? Spring tags. And now what is there? ST colon home JSP, man. ST colon message. ST colon message means what? Backing Java code is executed. That will pull. What have we given? Key. But for that key, what will be pulled? Value from dash bundle file. Resource bundle file. But which resource bundle file? Default one is what? English. That's why it shows it in English. Are you following? All of this is happening. Then same way for click to register, click to login, keys, for the keys corresponding values are being pulled from the resource bundle file. Done. Now I'll click to register. When he clicks to register, where has request gone? Open register view. Open register view means again one of the methods got executed for which we have at request mapping open register view. What are we returning there? Register. Because we are returning register, is register JSP displayed or not? And this is now being pulled from resource bundle file again. Are you with me? And now let's complete this. Tell me in register what we should do now. Array, I need my input na, so clearly I will have a form. But what form? Normal form? No, SF, spring tag, SF colon form. Remember SF colon form, what is it will have? Obviously we will have action. When he clicks on it, where do we want the request to go? Register. Remember what is it that is a mandatory attribute for spring form? Model attribute. Very good. Model attribute. Model attribute should be nothing but your label of what? Bean. Label of bean. So I'll call it, for example, reg. That means this reg should be the label of the attribute saved in the model before your register JSP is executed. So that's why what we should do in the pre-processing. By the way, what we should do to hold all the user inputs. Okay, let's build this first. So tell me the user inputs tree. What do we want? Hello? ST colon message. What message? Re? Code equal to what? Enter your name. Okay. Label dot. Okay. Enter your name. Okay. Tell me. Enter your name. After that, what do we want? SF colon. Text area. What do we want? SF colon. Hello? Input. Path equal to dash name. You name. Then what we should display if it is there? Very good. Errors. Errors for which element? Your name element. Perfect. 1 BR. Are you with me? So tell me, are we specifying what message to show here? No. And clearly we are using Spring elements, Spring tags to display this. So copy, paste. Right? One for email, one for password. I don't know what else do I have. Date of birth, huh? Date of birth, yeah. One for email, date of birth, and last for password. If you want, you can have repeat password also. Show me the error messages for password. Correct? Then what should be this? Label.first name, label.email. This is email, no? Second fellow. Label.email, then label.password, label.dob. There you go. Be careful where to copy and where to paste. You inline copy mode, I'll paste moment. Right? So be careful about that. That's it. So this is my JSP and one input type equal to submit. Bear with me, guys. It's a slightly hard class, but register. This completes my JSP code, correct? So look at it. Do I need to pull the error message, display it, loop over, return user input, anything? Nothing, right? All that Spring tags will handle it for us. But now tell me, before this JSP is executed, what will be executed in our home controller? What method? So this is pre-processing. What we should do here before we go to register? What is the prerequisite for SF:form? SF:form. Pre-processing, yeah, before JSP, register JSP is displayed, SF:form depends on model what? Model attribute. Model attribute. What is the model attribute it depends on? That means what we should do before this JSP is executed? We should create a bean object, save it under the label reg in your model as an attribute. Are you with me? Okay. So first things first, let me go about creating the bean class. So reg bean. Tell me, Ray, what do you want in reg bean? What do you have? Your name. What do you have? Email. What do you have? DOB. What do you have? Password. Control Shift O. Okay, it's an ordinary bean class setter getter. Provide equals hash code to string. All the standard stuff done. And now what I should do? This is my bean, correct? And you can have no argument constructor, parameterized constructor, convenience, etc. Definitely you should have the no argument constructor, which is anyways going to be added by compiler. Okay, done. My bean class is coded. Now tell me, you should remember this, guys. This is very important. Before any input view is shown, what we should create is an object of bean, and save that as attribute. Save it in model against label reg. That empty bean will be pulled, getter methods called, and pre-population will be done. Remember this? We have talked about it. Do you remember this? Okay. Silence. So that means what we should do? Model. We need to access, we need the input of our model. Control Shift O, import your Spring model. And now, what bean I should create? One empty reg bean object. Reg bean is equal to new reg bean. Where I should save this? Model dot add attribute. What label? Reg. What I should store? Why am I doing this? I need you to understand. Why am I doing this before the register view is because during the register view is processed, the backing Java code of SF:form is executed. SF:form will take the bean, call get uname, get email, get DOB, get password, and pre-populate it. For that we need to have a bean there. If the bean is not there, it doesn't work. Observe this now. Open register view. Let's look at our mappings. Open register view. This is open register view. What's the problem? It's restarting, huh? Get it restored. Some of you are thinking, sir, hibernate ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡ್ವಿ ಬಂದೇ ಇಲ್ಲ hibernate ಬರುತ್ತೆ right now hibernate ಬರೋದು. Okay, observe this. Now when a request is sent for open register view, is this method executed or not? What have we done? Created on empty bean. Where have we saved it? Model as an attribute underscore under label reg. Return register means register JSP executed. In register JSP SF colon form is there. SF colon form backing Java code. That what does it pull? Model attribute reg. Have we saved it or not? It gets that bean. That bean contains empty in data. It will pre-populate all this with empty data. Are you with me? Everybody clear? Now user can input blah blah blah, whatever he wants, right? And whatever information, and your password ಏನು ಹಿಂಗೆ ಕಾಣಿಸ್ತದೆ. So what should I have? SF colon, not input, SF colon password. So now he can click register. When he clicks register, where is the request going? Now we want to do what with this user inputs? No, before that. Now all user inputs he has given and clicks register. What we should do? Validation. So tell me what I should do in my controller. This is pre-processing, man, before register. What I should do? Hello? This is post-processing, no? Once when user clicks open register view, this is executed. When should this be executed? When request comes for /register. Now tell me whatever you want. Ask. What do you want? Register bean, but not just a bean. No. What bean? Validated bean. So if you want validation, I should go back to my bean, and what I should do above all the instance variables? At annotation. At what? Not blank. For strings, not blank. For email also not blank. For password also not blank. Correct? Date of birth is anyway optional. And tell me, then email, what should be the type of validation we need to do? It should be a email type input at email. Date of birth 3. Very good. At date time format. What is the pattern? Capital MM. Why. Okay. And when should the date of birth be? Past. All validations done. Minimum length of password. At length. Minimum 5. Maximum 10 or whatever it is. Are you with me? Everybody clear? So have I configured the validations or not? How do I ask for this object now? Are you asking? We already know. In our method of the controller, when this method is called, when is this method called? Is when request comes for /register. How do I ask for it? Is I simply say at valid. I got the bean. The moment I say at valid, what I should do? Binding result. I should ask for the result of validation. And where would I want to store data? And message is model. But remember, I want to store this when I go back. Not only I want this bean, I want it to be automatically saved as model attribute under the ID or under the label origin. Now tell me the control shift O. Tell me the logic. What I should do? If result.dash errors. As errors, what I should blindly do? Return register. Else, apply the logic and finally everything succeeds. Where I can return, what I can return is? Success. What is success? Success is JSP. One dummy JSPL code. Success.jsp. What I should add? Label dot success dot header equal to success. Copy this label. Copy this label. Go to success. Paste it. Not this. JSP. What I should? Yes. Remember, guys, it is only through repetitions it will make it easier for you to follow this. Otherwise, there are too many things happening and you can't simply understand it, certainly by me showing it to you. So that's why I am going to ask you many times to repeat. That is the only saving grace which will help us. So st colon message code equal to this, pull the data, pull the label and show it. Anyway, let's come back. Now home controller, blindly what am I doing? I am validating. If it fails, we are returning to register, else I am returning to success. But I should not do that. What I should do with this bean? Say invoke service, save it to database, correct? That's where Hibernate. Right? Now, look at this. Click to register. I don't enter anything. Register. Are we getting input validation failure messages next to the field beautifully or not? We don't have to code anything for it. It's already done. So I say Tambula. Register. User input is returned or not? User input is returned or not? Did I code for this? No. Yes. Using Spring tags. Tambula, no? Tambula means what? Eladke. Tambula, I just got to know yesterday, that is actually the name of the Devi, the Mother Divine or Durga if you call. Anyway, Gogu at magu.com. Okay, if I don't enter date of birth, if I enter wrong date of birth, if I enter forward date of birth, 2018, right, password 123, submit. And there you go. It must be in past, huh? It must be in past only, no? So this is in future. Obviously we are getting scolded. So if I change this to 2018 or 1998, then will it allow or not? It will allow. But now I need to enter the password. Password should not be empty and length must be this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Are you with me? But has anything succeeded really? Register means you should save it in database, no? So what I should do now? First what I should start? My database should be started, isn't it? Database started. And I'll start my DB manager swing. Bear with me, 5 more minutes. So now, my database has started. By the way, we are still in testing, okay? XDB I have given. We are still testing. I'm going to ask Hibernate to generate the schema. But ideally, how many times it should generate is only once. Now, first things first. What do we need now? Controller is done. Controller is coded. Now what I should code? What Pojo class read? Services. So I will call reg service. Don't call it service only. Call some service, right? So reg service. Reg service is the Pojo. What should I mark it? Add service. Control shift. Okay. So what method should be there? Again, simple register. What we should accept as parameter? Bean. Right? And now tell me, what else should we code? Oh, I don't want to code it in controllers. What will I code it in as a separate package? Services. Are you with me? And then, what else? What other Pojo I need? One more Pojo I need. Which one? DAO. Reg DAO. Or user DAO. User DAO. Actually, it would have been good to call it user service. I'll change it. I'll call the package. Let's not call it reg service. Let's call it user service. Rename it. Okay, done. Import reg bean. Okay, done. Now DAO also. DAO, tell me what I should do here also. Here also one method called register, or you can say create user. Okay, what we should be given to create user? Array reg bean. The user is registering, no? Reg bean. Are you with me? Now tell me what I should mark this as. At. Now tell me dependencies. Home controller needs what? Home controller, dependency, not DAO. Yaudappa. Service, that means what you should code it as? Instance variable. Instance variable. How do you have this be injected? Add auto word. And then in service what do we need? Dependency. DAO. So user, ideally we could have coded all these to interfaces. User, DAO. Again, this is the dependency, so add auto word. Control Shift. Are you with me? And then now tell me. So I am going to simply return here. Return. So what is the implementation? In my service, I have been asked to register. Bean is given. Who should I ask to register? Save now. Hello? DAO. I should ask it to DAO to do what? Create the user, and what I should pass? Bean. And what does this create user return is a string. So blindly I will return that string to the invoker. Why is this? Okay, we have not returned anything yet. Alright. So this create user, what will it return? String. Whatever string I get, I return it back to the invoker. Who is the invoker of this? Who should invoke this? Now, look at this. When you ask a user to register, we will ask the Spring framework to give us user inputs in a bean with data type conversion, with validation, with the results of the validation. If the validation fails, I go back. Else, whom should I ask to save? I should ask service. Service is there already. Service dot register. I'll ask it to save. And what will it give me is a string. Are you with me? Everybody clear? So if I have to check now, if this message succeeds, then where I should return? Success. I'll show it to you. And now I am asking my service to register, fine. But what should service do? My service should ask whom to register? DAO. It is asking it to create user. So in here I need to now write the logic of creating user. Tell me, what does the DAO have dependency on finally? Hibernate. Hibernate means what do you want? Session factory. That's all. Session factory. And what I should say? Add auto word. That's all. And now tell me, Control Shift O by the way. Now tell me what I should do. And that's it. I need to get rid of a session, no? So session S is equal to factory dot open session. Then S dot begin transaction. Begin transaction. Control Shift O. Then finally I'll do S dot commit. Not S dot commit. S dot get transaction dot commit. Then S dot close. Don't close the factory. Don't close the factory. Right? But in between this, tell me what I should do. This is the important part, guys. I want to save. What do I want to save? This bean. Array. Session dot save. What parameter I can pass to save? What parameter I can pass? Entity reference. That means what should register be marked as now? Reg bean be marked as? Very good. This reg bean now, where we already have annotations for validation, we need to mark this as at entity. Now observe, has a relationship. Reg bean has uname, email, date of birth, password. Tell me, what kind of attributes are these? 1:1. What kind of attributes? Simple value types. So that means no entity, no at 1:1, no at 1:many, etc. Are you with me, guys? They are simple value types, all 1:1. So simple identity. Now what I should add extra? SL number. Private long SL. I should mark this as what? I should mark this as at generated value. Getter, getter. Anyway, it's not required for us. So you can add it. Set SL can anyway be marked private, or you don't even need to generate it. Are you with me? So look at this. This reg bean only is entity for us. Are you with me? Now, all I need to ask Hibernate to do is save that reg bean. Right? And after committing, closing, everything is successful, means blindly I will return, let's say, some constant success for now. Or I will return register dot, register dot, what has succeeded? Registration has succeeded, no? So I am simply returning one string, register dot success. Whatever I return from create user, who will it be given to? Service. What is service doing with the string? Returning. Returning to whom? Who is interacting with service? Home controller. Home controller will get that message now. So what I should say? If message dot equals what? Yes. If message dot equals register dot success, then go to success. Else where should I go?
Register.
Else I go back to register. It's not done yet. We'll have to see that. Okay, that's it. Now I have completed one end-to-end use case, right? Because I have taken the user input data, I have validated it, I have given it to service, service has given to DAO, DAO has interacted with Hibernate and asked it to save it. And then return back the information. We'll see the error. So, no qualifying mean, hold on, we have not done yet. So now, only configuration we need to double check is what? In Spring Servlet.xml, we want annotation scanning, component scanning, service to controller, everything is there, no? We need component scanning, but not just for controllers, no, now we have added new packages, what? Dot service, services, and dot DAO. Are you with me? Because I have created those packages. Now we are ready to test. Right click, run as run on server, finish this. Maybe the name is already there. We'll see. There is some exception. HSQLDB. Oh, okay. I know what the problem is. Be careful about this, guys. Test. Remember, you need the latest lib folder. Latest hsqldb.jar. Alright, so anyway, when I give it to you, I'll make sure it is the latest. So I need to paste that. So I had an old HSQLDB jar, that won't work. Now, again, I'll repeat. When server starts, web server scans web.xml, dispatcher servlet loaded, instantiated, initialized. When dispatcher servlet is initialized, it scans your Spring Servlet.xml because Spring container starts, Spring container scans your Spring Servlet.xml, and that will go through all the configurations, right? Where we have started we have asked it to create session factory. There we have given input of packages to scan. So it scans at entity for our edge bean. That means what should already be created now? Some scolding. But what should already be created is our table. Database alias. So remember, hazard things can go wrong. So we need to be able to debug it. So let's look at the URL. The URL is wrong. So localhost / xdb. Now, all of this seems very fine to understand, if at all. When you code it, you will see that small mistakes, nothing will work. Don't worry. I'm going to demonstrate, then I'm going to demonstrate, and then I will demonstrate. Only then you will understand. So look at this. Console. What has already happened? All we did was start server, but already table has been created or not? How come? You need to understand. So server starts, your dispatcher servlet starts, Spring container starts, Spring Servlet.xml information read, your session factory created. When session factory is created, your packages to scan you have given, your at entity is read. Already for at entity, the table is created. Hibernate creates this. Alright. So now, all we need to do is test this. Home page, click to register. I don't give any input. Click register, control comes back. Right. I give some input. Rasa at mosa.com. Right. I register. Again, I have not given full input. Control comes back. I give some 2000. Again, register. Control comes back. 1, 2, 3. Control comes back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, if I submit all user inputs package into the bean is validated properly now. That means the result has no errors. That means this bean will be given to service. Service will give this bean to DAO. DAO will ask Hibernate to save. If everything works, then what should be created now in your database table is a row integration of Spring and Hibernate. And that should return. If it returns register.success, where are we forwarding to? Success.jsp. So success.jsp displayed. And look at this. What has Hibernate already executed? Beautiful insert. It already takes the bean set, executes. That means what is there in your database? You will see now that there should be a table called regbean. We don't want to name this regbean, right? We will change it. Add table values. Rasa at Mosa has gone and happily sat there. Are you with me, guys? So clearly, if user now wants, somebody else registers now, bmove, right? Bmove add mamu.com, right? Some date of birth, some password, register, success, another insert has been fired. I go here, there is one more, bmove at mamu. Are you with me? Did we write SQL? Did we write JDBC? Did we connect to the database? Did we manage connection pooler? Have we written any of those code? No. Everything Hibernate does. Lot of understanding, very less of coding, right? So this completes our integration with Spring and Hibernate. Now, this is only register flow I have shown, no? So for login, we should validate whether the data is there or not. So again, we'll have to ask Hibernate to query. Then after he logs in, I want to give edit account where user can change his data and his data should be updated. Then we will give an ability for admin or somebody to click on delete and the data should be deleted. And we will give for the admin to see all the user information was registered and shown. That means we will see full CRUD actions of entire thing. Are you with me? Only when you see that will you be able to get a grander understanding of everything coming together. But right now, whatever we have done so far, we don't need to do everything again. Right? Next things are all just one method we need to add. One method in controller, one method in service, one method in DF. That's it. Because all the interaction of MVC is already built. Next comes only each method in each Pojo class we code. Are you with me? However, what we have done today should be cemented in your mind. So this is not the world's most interesting class, I understand. So I give you a Nobel Prize for sitting in this class, right? Oscar Yenbeck, chocolate togodi, imaginary one. Okay, so now I will give you double chocolate, imaginary again, because you have to recap this. This is, God help you, okay, jokes aside. You need to recap only the implementation, right? So how are you going to do that? This video will be available to you in the next half an hour. Please go through that, only the implementation part. 2.5 hours we have taken to discuss the entire thing, but please go through only the implementation part. Theory and all initially you forget, the implementation part, go through it and come, because tomorrow in the next session, I will build the rest of it. Are you with me? I will build the rest of it, and because you would have seen it, it would have hammered you in you the steps. Again I show it, again we discuss, then everything will become clear, then we can do a lab. Are you with me? Thank you.